Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Brandon Bias from chicken.com here finally with your Photoshop tutorial for Tutorial Tuesday. I know it's been like a month or 2 months or something like that since I've made my last tutorial, and I'm sorry about that. I've been a little bit busy, and I'll put my excuses and whatnot in the description if you want, but I'm sure you guys want to get into this tutorial. But actually, before I get into the tutorial, I just kind of want to apologize in advance if for some reason I talk a little fast or anything like that, because, like I said, it's been a while since I've actually made a tutorial, so sorry in advance if, something doesn't sound right. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and show you what this bad boy is going to look like. Alright, so here's the original picture that we're going to be working with. Well, what I'm going to be working with anyway. You're obviously going to be using something that you took yourself, or, I don't know, just, it's going to be a completely different picture, whatever it is you're using. And so, there are 2 different ways that you can actually do this effect. The first way, which I'm sure is something that most of you would rather do just because it's a little less time consuming, is to apply the entire effect on the picture. And I kind of forgot to mention what the effect is. The effect is called the Dave Hill effect, and this was actually a tutorial requested by someone forever ago because it's actually not a very easy effect to create, even though it looks kind of simple to create it. I don't know, it's kind of weird. So anyway, here is what the effect looks like when you apply it on the entire picture. Bam. So, as you can see, it actually looks pretty cool. I mean, you got some cool contrasting and such going on. If you actually zoom in and take a closer look, it actually looks like a very high contrast movie cartoon drawing sort of thing. I don't know, that's the best way I can think of it to describe it. It just looks really, really unique and interesting and whatnot. So that's how that looks if you apply the effect on the entire picture, but the other way to do it is to put a mask around the person that's in the picture and just do the effect on him and just do whatever the crap you want to the background. And so this is actually the way that I like to do it because it actually turns out cooler. Check this out. Bam. So, like I said, doing it this way takes a little bit more time and a little bit more effort, but in my opinion, it's all worth it. So, I suppose we should actually get into the tutorial itself. It's already been a couple of minutes, and we haven't even started. So, let's get going. Alright, so first off, obviously, you're going to want to decide if you want to mask out your character or not. Me, obviously, I already went through the trouble of masking them out, so that's the way I'm going to go. If you decide not to, just don't worry about these first couple of steps, it's no big deal. Alright, so for those of you that actually decided to mask out your guy, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your masked copy of your guy right there, and you're going to duplicate it by hitting Ctrl-J or Command-J. And you're going to put a layer underneath it by having it selected and control-clicking the create a new layer icon. And we're just going to fill this up with white by hitting Control Backspace or Command Delete if you're on a Mac. And that's that shortcut because we've got white as our background color over here. And so now we'll just select both of these layers and merge them together by hitting Control E or Command E. And we're just going to rename this Layer 0 because that's going to be our starting point pretty much. For those of you that don't really want to mask anything out and just want to use your picture as it is, this is pretty much going to be your background layer right here. So what you're going to do is go ahead and duplicate this layer. So we're going to get a layer 0 copy, but we're going to rename this to layer 1. Because for those that are just duplicating their background layer, it's going to show up as layer 1. So now you can follow along just as well. Alright, so with layer 1 selected, we're going to go to Filter, Other, High Pass, and we're going to set that to a radius of 7 pixels and hit OK. And we're going to change the blend mode of that to linear light. And so what that's going to do is just kind of give that a little bit of a highlight to it, like so. And now we're going to merge everything we see into a new layer by hitting Control Alt Shift E or Command Option Shift E if you're on a Mac. And so now with this merged duplicate of everything, we're going to go back to Filter, Other, High Pass, and this time we're going to use a radius of 10 pixels rather than 7, and we'll hit OK. And we'll change the blend mode of that to color, and we'll change the opacity to 40%. And now, once again, we're going to do a Control Alt Shift E or Command Option Shift E. you're going to find that we're going to do this quite a few times, so make sure you can get that shortcut to work. Alright, so with layer 3 selected, we're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're going to set the radius of this Gaussian Blur to 10, and we'll hit OK, and then go back to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and the amount is going to be 3%, with a uniform distribution and monochromatic checkmark if you so choose. I don't really think it matters too much. And we'll hit OK. And so obviously we don't want this to be blurred, so we want a particular layer mask applied to this. So for that, we're going to go back to the layer 1 right here, and we're going to Alt click or Option click if you're on a Mac the eye next to it to single it out, and we're going to select the entire canvas by hitting Control A. And then we'll copy all this by hitting Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac, and we'll go to our channels over here, and we're going to create a new channel and paste what we just copied into there by hitting Control V. And now that we've got this copied into its own little channel right there, we can go up to Image Adjustments, and we'll go to Threshold right there. So what we're going to do with this threshold is move the slider to the left like so, and I'm going to put it to about 94, and basically what you're aiming for is to have a little outline sort of thing going. So if I hit OK and zoom in a little bit, you'll see that we've got kind of an outline sort of going on everything. You got something going on the lips, you can see his eye, you know, the little bits of his hair, and just the line around his jacket and all that. So that's the general look that you're going for with the threshold, so just make sure you have that. And so once you've got that, just go ahead and Control click or Command click the thumbnail for this Alpha 1 channel. And now we're going to go back to the layers and select layer 1. And once again, we'll Alt click the eye or Option click if you're on a Mac. And we'll go back to layer 3 and we'll click the layer mask icon right there. And if you Alt click or Option click the thumbnail right there, that'll show you the layer mask that's going on, and that should be the alpha channel that you made earlier. And while we've got this up, we'll go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we'll set that to a radius of about 60 pixels or so, and we'll hit OK, and then we'll Alt click or Option click that thumbnail again, and then we'll put the opacity of layer 3 down to 30%. And so the whole purpose of this was to kind of dampen all of that right there and kind of soften it up a little bit. Seems a little pointless, but it kind of adds to it in the end, so yeah. Alright, so the next couple of parts coming up are a little tricky, but it shouldn't be too hard if you follow along, so just make sure you pay very close attention to this. We are going to go to File, Save As, and we're going to name this Test, and put it as a JPEG format right there. So with test.jpg, we're going to save that, and when the JPEG options come up, just make sure that, if this could finish loading, there we go. So just make sure your quality is at least 10, that way you get a nice high quality picture. You can go up to 11 or 12 if you so want, but it's not quite that necessary. So we'll hit OK, and as soon as it's done saving, you're going to want to open up Adobe Bridge. And don't think you don't have Adobe Bridge, because it comes with every single Adobe product. So don't think you don't have it. Alright, so once you've got Adobe Bridge opened up, make sure you go to the folder where test.jpg is, and right click it and go to Open in Camera Raw, that third option right there. And so now you'll get this little dealio with like a crapload of options and such. And thankfully for all of you, I came up with a very easy to remember set of inputs for this. We're going to go to the recovery and set that to 100. The fill light we'll put to 50. The blacks we'll put to 25. The brightness we'll put to 50. The contrast we'll put to 25. The clarity we'll put to 75. Vibrance 50. And saturation 25. So 100, 50, 25, 50, 25, 75, 50, 25. Pretty easy to remember, or I think. I don't know. I don't know, let me know if that's easy to remember or not. Oh, and also, for those of you that are actually doing the entire picture and not just a masked version, if you want to put a vignette on this, this is a good time to do it. And so you'll need to come over here to the lens corrections right here, and make sure you're set to manual right there, and just put the lens vignetting all the way down to -100, and then if you so choose, you can put the midpoint down to 0, and that will give you a nice, really soft vignette around the entire thing. But obviously, since I'm working on a masked copy of all this stuff, we'll just not even bother with that at all. So once you've got all of that, we'll just go to the open image icon right there, and we'll give that a click, and that's automatically going to open it in its own tab in Photoshop CS5 or whatever version of Photoshop you happen to be on. And so I'll zoom in, and we're actually going to go back to the original things we were working on right here. And we're going to select layer 3 and do a Control-Alt-Shift-E to merge everything into its own layer. And we're going to right click this layer 4, and we're going to duplicate that layer. And when this little duplicate layer menu shows up, you're going to want to change the documents to test.jpg, and we'll hit OK. And so once you go back to test.jpg up here, you'll see that that layer was actually copied into this, just like we said to. So that's actually a pretty nifty little trick that I learned when I was when I was first learning this effect. There we go. Having issues talking today. What's with that? So anyway, with this layer 1 selected, we're going to set the blend mode to color, and we're going to change the opacity to 60%, like so. And now we're going to go ahead and do another Control-Alt-Shift-E or Command-Option-Shift-E on a Mac. At least I think that's it. Now that I think about it, I'm not really too sure. Oh well, if it's not that, then I'll just have to look it up for you guys later or something. So now that we've got this merged into its own layer, we'll right-click this layer 2, and we'll do a duplicate layer again. Except this time we'll set the document to a new document. You don't have to worry about a name, just hit OK. And so now that this is in its own document, we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, HDR Toning. And it's going to ask, or it's going to say that HDR toning will flatten the document and ask you if you want to proceed. And so yes, we do want to proceed, and that's kind of why we bother to put this in its own document. We don't want to flatten all the other layers and such, because we need to use those in just a second. So anyway, we're going to take the presets, and we're going to change it to surrealistic. And so you're going to see all kinds of craziness happen over here. And if you like how intense all of this is, just leave it as it is. Otherwise, just follow me and do what I do. So what I like to do is take the radius and tone it down to somewhere in the 240 range, and take the strength and bring it down closer to 3, you know, something like 3.16 or 3.06, 3.12, I don't know, just somewhere in there, just somewhere a little closer to 3. And then take the detail and put it closer to about 200-ish. And so that'll just tone down the overall effect going on here. And so once that's done, you'll go ahead and hit OK. And depending on the image you're using and how complicated it is, this is probably going to take a little while to do. So I'll just go ahead and fast forward. Alright, so finally the HDR toning is finished, and now we can use this little picture right here for something else. So if you're one of the people that decided to use the entire picture and not a mask like I did, what you can just do now is right click and duplicate this layer, and you can duplicate it back into test.jpg. But since I masked this, I kind of want to get that mask back, so we're going to go to e2.psd instead, or just whatever that original thing is for you. And when this paste profile mismatch comes up, just hit OK, kind of ignore that. And so we're going to go back to here, and now we're going to go to our original mask right here, which is why I even kept it instead of it just kind of merging that into its white background and all that stuff. So go ahead and hold the Alt key or the Option key if you're on a Mac, and click and drag this up to this background layer right here, and that'll mask it for you. And now I'm going to turn on the original layer down here, and then Control click to select it. And with both of these layers selected, I'm going to right click and duplicate those layers, and we're going to put them into test.jpg, and we'll hit OK. And so now we'll just navigate to the test.jpg tab up here, and I'm going to move the original down below layer 1 and layer 2. And so now we're going to go to this background layer, and we're going to set this sucker to soft light. And also we're going to, oh, that's right, we need to delete layer 2, or was it layer 1? Let's see, which was it? Alright, sorry about that. That was actually wrong. You're actually supposed to delete layer 1, and then you can copy the mask to layer 2. There we go. Sorry about that. I kind of got those two layers mixed up. But anyway, we're fixed now. Layer 2 you keep, and then you just copy the mask to it. So that's what you get right there. Whoops. Alright, so now that that issue is cleared up, just one more thing that we might want to do. If you zoom into 100% and you go over to one of these edges, you'll see that we've got a white edge kind of going on. And that's actually happening because of layer 2. So go to the layer mask for layer 2, grab a brush of some sort, and we'll size it down so it's not too ginormous. And make sure you've got black as your foreground color, and just kind of mask off that white edge. Alright, so now that I've gotten rid of that little white edge, we can move on to actually making the background look a little bit better, because obviously it looks a little too bland. So the way I decided to do this was to duplicate this original layer right here, and we're going to desaturate the copy by hitting Control-Shift-U or Command-Shift-U if you're on a Mac, and then we'll change the blend mode of this to Overlay. And then if you want to intensify this even more, you can just go to Filter, Sharpen. Let's see, Smart Sharpen is something that I like to use, and basically all I do in Smart Sharpen is put the amount and radius all the way to the max, and the remove is set to Gaussian blur. And now we'll just, actually, what happens when you click more accurate? Whoa, that looks intense. Oh well, that was worth looking at, but I'm just gonna go ahead and keep that unchecked. And we'll hit OK. Alright, and so now you are basically done. Unless for some reason you actually don't like having this little glow, you can actually put a mask on that and just kind of get rid of that. Alright, so now everything is final. We are finished, everyone. Well, how long did this take? What, like 20 minutes or something like that? I don't even know. But when all is said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I definitely learned a lot from making this myself. I don't know if I'll use it in the future. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But heck, you never know. It's a pretty cool effect. And if you guys have any suggestions for any tutorials or anything like that, please send me a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, guys, be sure to check out our Facebook page and let us know that you want more like After Effects tutorials or something like that. That way, Eli will get the ball rolling on his After Effects and Sony Vegas tutorials, because he was supposed to do that and he didn't, the lazy butt. Oh well, I've jabbered on for too long. I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. I'm a little bit tired anyway, so I guess I'll see you guys another week.